the pantheon of American muscle cars. Few machines capture the essence of 1965, quite like the Pontiac Catalina 421 Tri-Power. With only 877 examples rolling off the assembly line that year, this particular beast represented something truly special in Pontiac's lineup. Heck, finding one today is like discovering buried treasure in your grandfather's garage. This wasn't just another pretty face in the Pontiac family tree. It was a gentleman's hot rod that could purr down Main Street with dignity, then unleash hell when the throttle beckoned. To understand how this automotive legend came to life, we need to roll back the clock to an era when Detroit's engineers were pushing boundaries and Pontiac was establishing itself as the performance division of General Motors. The story of the 1965 Catalina 421 begins in the boardrooms and design studios of Pontiac Motor Division during the early 1960s. Pontiac had been making waves since the late 1950s under the guidance of Chief Engineer John DeLorean and General Manager Pete Estes, who transformed the brand from a stodgy old-timer into America's excitement division. The wide-track Pontiac slogan wasn't just marketing fluff. It was a philosophy that permeated every aspect of their engineering and design approach. By 1964, Pontiac had already established itself as a force to be reckoned with in the performance arena, but the company was hungry for more. The automotive landscape of the mid-60s was experiencing a seismic shift. The post-war economic boom had created a generation of buyers with disposable income and a taste for speed. Young Americans were coming of age in an era of optimism and prosperity, and they wanted cars that reflected their confidence and ambition. Detroit's automakers were locked in an arms race of horsepower and styling, each trying to outdo the others with increasingly powerful engines and dramatic designs. Against this backdrop, Pontiac's engineers were hard at work developing what would become their magnum opus for 1965. The Catalina represented the entry point into Pontiac's full-size lineup, positioned below the Star Chief and the flagship Bonneville. But this didn't mean it was a compromise. If anything, the Catalina served as Pontiac's democratic muscle car, a way for working-class enthusiasts to get genuine performance without breaking the bank. The development process wasn't without its challenges, though. Creating a production-ready tri-power setup required extensive testing and refinement. The engineers had to ensure that the three Rochester two-barrel carburetors would work in harmony, with the center carburetor handling normal driving duties, while the outer units kicked in only under heavy acceleration. Getting the progressive linkage right was like conducting a mechanical orchestra. One wrong note, and the whole symphony would fall apart. The fuel delivery system had to be precisely calibrated to prevent lean conditions that could damage the engine, while still providing the explosive power delivery that enthusiasts craved. The financial constraints were another hurdle. Building a limited production engine option meant higher costs per unit, and Pontiac had to justify the expense to General Motors bean counters. The company solved this by positioning the 421 Tri-Power as a halo engine, something that would generate excitement and draw customers into showrooms, even if most would end up buying less exotic models. This strategy worked brilliantly, as the mere existence of such potent options elevated the entire Pontiac brand in the public consciousness. The engineering team also had to navigate the complex web of emissions regulations and safety standards that were beginning to emerge in the mid-60s. While these weren't as stringent as what would come later in the decade, they still required careful attention to detail and extensive testing to ensure compliance. By late 1964, all the pieces were falling into place for what would become one of Pontiac's finest hours. The 1965 model year would mark the introduction of an all-new full-size platform that would showcase Pontiac's engineering prowess and design sophistication. The Catalina 421 Tri-Power wasn't just an engine option, it was a statement of intent, a declaration that Pontiac was serious about performance and wasn't afraid to push the envelope. The heart of this mechanical masterpiece was the 421 cubic inch V8 engine, a power plant that represented the pinnacle of Pontiac's big block engineering. Displacing 6.9 liters, this engine was no mere enlargement of existing designs. It was a purpose-built performance motor designed to deliver massive torque and horsepower, while maintaining the reliability that Pontiac customers expected. The tri-power setup consisted of 3 Rochester 2-barrel carburetors mounted on a specially designed intake manifold, creating a distinctive appearance under the hood that immediately identified this as something special. The center carburetor handled all the normal driving duties, from idle to moderate acceleration, ensuring good fuel economy and smooth operation during everyday use. When the driver's right foot called for more power, the progressive linkage would gradually open the outboard carburetors, unleashing an additional wave of fuel and air into the combustion chambers. The engine block itself was a work of art, cast from high-quality iron and featuring deep skirts for maximum rigidity. The bore measured 4.09 inches, while the stroke stretched to 3.75 inches, creating the perfect balance of high RPM capability and low end torque. The compression ratio of 10.75 to 1 was aggressive for the era, requiring premium fuel but delivering the kind of crisp throttle response that made driving this engine an event rather than mere transportation. Chrome valve covers with distinctive ribbing not only looked spectacular but also helped dissipate heat from the valve train, while the dual exhausts provided the distinctive rumble that announced this Pontiac's presence from blocks away. The tri-power induction system was more than just a performance gimmick. It was a sophisticated piece of engineering that provided the best of both worlds. During normal operation, the engine ran as smoothly and efficiently as any single carburetor setup, thanks to the carefully calibrated center Rochester unit. This meant that owners could drive their Catalinas to work every day without worrying about fouled plugs or poor fuel economy. But when the situation called for it, perhaps at a stoplight with a Chevelle SS alongside the full fury of all 3 carburetors, could be unleashed with devastating effect. The transition was so smooth that many drivers couldn't tell when the outboard carburetors engaged, except for the sudden surge of acceleration that pushed them back into their seats. The transmission choices were equally impressive, with buyers able to select from several options depending on their priorities. The 4-speed manual with floor shifter was the enthusiast choice, providing complete control over the engine's power band and the satisfaction of rowing through the gears. The turbo hydromatic automatic was perfect for those who wanted effortless performance, with its smooth shifts and ability to handle the engine's substantial torque output. Both transmissions were specifically calibrated to work with the tri-power engine, ensuring optimal performance and durability. The rear axle assembly featured Pontiac's safe T-Track limited slip differential as standard equipment with the 421, helping to put all that power to the ground without breaking the tires loose at every opportunity. The suspension system deserved special mention, as Pontiac engineers had developed a setup that could handle the engine's performance while still providing a comfortable ride. The front suspension used independent coil springs and wishbones, while the rear featured a solid axle with coil springs and trailing arms. This combination provided excellent stability during hard acceleration, while maintaining the smooth, quiet ride that full-size car buyers expected. The steering was precise and well-weighted, giving drivers confidence when pushing the car hard through corners or during high-speed cruising on the interstate highways that were rapidly spreading across America. One of the most distinctive features of the Catalina was its optional 8-lug aluminum brake drums, a Pontiac exclusive that ran from 1960 through 1968. These beautiful wheels weren't just for show. The aluminum drums dissipated heat more effectively than conventional steel units, providing better stopping power and longer brake life. The 8-lug pattern wasn't just aesthetic either. It allowed for more even distribution of braking forces and provided easier access for maintenance. Of course, if you were planning to do much spirited driving, you'd better hope your mechanic knew his way around drum brakes. disc brakes were still a few years away from becoming standard equipment. The exterior styling of the 1965 Catalina was a masterclass in automotive design, featuring the distinctive Coke bottle shape that would become synonymous with mid-60s American cars. This design philosophy created a car that appeared to swell around the rear wheels before tapering toward both ends, creating a sense of motion even when standing still. The belt line kicked up dramatically at the C-pillar, while the lower body line dove down, creating a dynamic tension that made the car appear ready to pounce. The hardtop coupe configuration eliminated the B-pillar entirely, creating an uninterrupted flow of glass from front to rear that enhanced the car's sleek appearance. Chrome trim was used judiciously but effectively, highlighting key design elements without overwhelming the clean lines of the body. The interior of the Catalina Ventura represented the premium trim level available on Pontiac's entry-level full-size model. For about $100 more than the base Catalina, buyers received upgraded seats, door panels, and other interior appointments that elevated the cabin from merely functional to genuinely luxurious. The dashboard featured 3 distinctive gauges canted toward the driver fuel level, charging system status, and a clock creating a more sporting atmosphere than the typical full-size sedan of the era. One amusing feature that often confused new owners was the climate control system, which looked remarkably similar to the radio with its array of knobs and switches. Pontiac's climate control was actually quite advanced for its time, automatically increasing fan speed as the temperature setting was moved toward either end of the scale. The 1965 model year marked a transition for Pontiac's full-size lineup, with the Catalina riding on a 121-inch wheelbase compared to the 124-inch span of the Star Chief in Bonneville. This shorter wheelbase gave the Catalina more nimble handling characteristics while still providing adequate interior space for 5 adult passengers. The overall length of 218 inches made it a substantial presence on the road without being unwieldy in parking lots or garages. During its brief production run, the Catalina 421 Tri-Power attracted a devoted following among performance enthusiasts who appreciated its combination of street manners and track-ready capability. Unlike some of the more radical muscle cars that would follow later in the decade, the Catalina was perfectly at home cruising down the boulevard or pulling into the country club parking lot. Its sophisticated appearance and refined interior made it acceptable to a broader range of buyers than the more overtly aggressive models that were beginning to emerge from Detroit's performance labs. The ownership experience was generally positive, though it did require a certain level of mechanical sympathy. The tri-power setup needed regular attention to keep all 3 carburetors properly synchronized, and owners quickly learned the importance of using high-octane fuel to prevent detonation with the engine's high compression ratio. Fuel economy was, shall we say, optimistic. When the driver had a heavy right foot, this was definitely not the car for someone worried about gas station visits. Regular maintenance was crucial, particularly keeping the air cleaner element clean and ensuring the vacuum lines that controlled the progressive carburetor linkage remained in good condition. Many owners modified their Catalinas over the years, adding aftermarket exhaust systems, performance air cleaners, and other upgrades to extract even more performance from the already potent package. Some installed headers to replace the restrictive factory exhaust manifolds, while others upgraded to later model cylinder heads with better flow characteristics. The engine's robust bottom end could handle considerable increases in power, making it a favorite among hot rodders and drag racers who appreciated its combination of displacement and durability. The Catalina 421 also found favor among law enforcement agencies in certain parts of the country, where its combination of performance and subtlety made it ideal for pursuit work. Unlike more obvious police vehicles, the Catalina could blend into traffic until its services were needed, at which point the tri-power engine's explosive acceleration made short work of catching speeding violators. Some departments ordered their Catalinas with special police packages that included heavy-duty cooling systems, reinforced suspension components, and other modifications designed for high-speed service. Racing enthusiasts discovered that the Catalina's combination of power and relatively light weight made it competitive in various forms of motorsport. While not as common as the more specialized models like the GTO, the Catalina 421 could hold its own on both drag strips and road courses when properly prepared. The engine's broad torque curve made it particularly effective in applications where consistent power delivery was more important than peak horsepower numbers. The car's appearance in various forms of popular culture helped cement its reputation as a symbol of American automotive excellence. Magazine road tests of the era consistently praised the Catalina's combination of performance and refinement, with many writers noting that it represented the best of both worlds, genuine muscle car performance in a package that could serve as everyday transportation. The distinctive sound of the tri-power engine under full acceleration became the soundtrack of an era, a mechanical symphony that spoke of power, freedom, and the boundless optimism of mid-60s America. Today, the 1965 Pontiac Catalina 421 Tri-Power stands as one of the most collectible and respected muscle cars of its era. With only 877 examples produced, finding an original, unmodified example is increasingly difficult, and prices for good examples have climbed steadily as collectors recognize the car's historical significance and driving enjoyment. The combination of rarity, performance, and distinctive styling has made it a favorite among serious collectors who appreciate its place in automotive history. If you're lucky enough to spot one at a classic car show, take a moment to admire what many consider to be one of Pontiac's finest achievements, a true gentleman's hot rod that could civilize itself for Sunday drives while unleashing pure fury when the moment demanded it.